The logs you may have to work with can deviate greatly from what you may feel is ideal. It is realistically possible to use logs that are tapered, machine damaged, and dissimilar in size, shape, and form. If the logs are straight, uniform, and with a minimal taper, the job of choosing the next log becomes much simpler. Let's deal with the last, simpler group first. Then you should be able to apply the same principles to the more difficult choices. You will already have made your choice of log species. They are all good if properly protected. The preferred species would be cypress, cedar, and Douglas fir, then pine, spruce, balsam fir, and all the hardwoods. Obtain logs that are as uniform as possible as to size, range, and taper. You will, of course, try to get logs that are straight and without spiral grain, and logs that have a conical or full form. Try to avoid skinny or nebuloid forms, but most important, logs that are the same general form and size. In all likelihood, you will have to buy your logs. Visit the supplier's operation if possible. Specify logs by length, top size, quality, and form. Shorter logs will have to have larger tops to have the same midpoint diameter. Quality will specify no rot, spiral grain within limits of 1 inch in 10 feet, and particularly no machine damage. These ideals are rarely met. Form will include the rate of taper, for example 1 inch in 10 feet, and the amount of curve or sweep. For this I suggest that a string on the center line will not go outside the log in a 30-foot length. While it is a good idea to choose the logs 2 at a time for a building that has only 4 walls, you should also keep the specifications for the next 2 logs in mind as well. If your building has 5 or more walls, select the logs that will complete the half round. If the logs you choose have much the same midpoint diameter, there should be no problem. If for some reason one log is smaller than the other, Remember that you will have to pick a larger than average size next time to make up the height. It is a common error in log selection to think that shorter logs should be smaller. This is obviously not so. The midpoint diameter will have to average out the same on each wall by the time the wall is complete. You have considerable liberty in respect to log size as the wall goes up. Parallel walls should be equal in height, and each corner should be close to the same height at the even numbered rounds, 2, 4, 6. Plan 2 rounds ahead at each wall, because the sequence repeats every 2 rounds. So if the logs will work for 2 rounds, you can keep on going. What you are trying to avoid is the need to cut a notch so deep that it goes right on through the log. The normal way to start a building is to place the first 2 half logs with the butt ends pointing the same way. The 2 3/4 logs will also have their butt ends pointing the same way, although it generally will not matter whether this is to the right or to the left. You now have examples of each of the 4 possible corner combinations. 1. Butt on butt. 2. Butt on top. 3. Top on top. And 4. Top on butt. It is, of course, possible to modify this arrangement and switch the ends of the first 2 logs. This will not, however, change or simplify anything, and may cause some problems when you come to the top of the wall, and if you want, for instance, to have the 2 butt ends extended in the same direction. The same sequence of log end combinations will also happen up the wall at each corner as you build. At corner number 1, the next log will be a top on a butt, then a top on a top, then a butt on a top, then back to butt on butt. Log choice, then, is dependent on required wall height, log length, and the height of material above the notch. When you have completed the 3rd round, measure the height of the wall from the foundation at each notch. The height of butt and top respectively for one log might be 800 millimeters and 750 millimeters. At the other wall, the heights are 810 millimeters and 760 millimeters. Ideally, you might choose a log for the second wall that has a slightly larger size than the choice for the first wall. This should bring the final heights to very near level and equal. A difference of 25 millimeters is acceptable. The log choice will have to be modified by the lengths of the available logs. If a short log is required, don't cut a long straight log just because the size may be perfect. Look for a short log or a crooked log that is within limits. The height of wood above the notch must be considered also before the next log is chosen. At corner number 1 for round 4, you will be placing a top on a butt. The height of wood above the notch should be somewhat more than half the diameter of the top you will choose. This will require a notch that is more than half the diameter of the top. The next top on the adjacent wall, then, will be notched less than halfway to provide material for the 5th log that will be a butt end. If your construction is more complex than a simple 4-wall structure, you will have to give more thought to keeping the wall height under control. At each even round, it is important that the wall height from the foundation be within a tolerance of 1 to 1 1/2 inches or 40 millimeters from end to end. At this point in your building, you will be not using your best logs, and a little variation in wall height will be acceptable. It is a waste of time to insist that these logs be dead level. This is accomplished in several ways. 1. Pick logs of a size that will improve the wall height. 2. Correct any difference when you come to the window height. You will now be using short logs, and you can use greatly different diameters to reach a level before the top of the window or the header log. Mark the height of the wall on each end of each log as it is finished. You will then have an easy reminder when you go to get the next piece. By short log, we mean logs that don't go the full length of the wall. These logs will most often have only one notch in them as they go from a corner to a window or doorway. They may also have no notches, as in the pieces between the windows. By learning to handle this kind of log, you can save a lot of expense in cutting long logs. You can use short pieces that would otherwise be waste. You can regain control of the wall height if that should be necessary, and you can better center the logs at a window opening or a doorway. Cut the piece to length, then cut a small location notch before placing the log on the wall. You can measure the receiver portion and cut accordingly, or you can just guess when you are sufficiently experienced. This will save the trouble of rolling the log on the wall and also make it more stable while you move it into the best position for scribing. Use a block the height of your chosen scribe to locate the width of the location notch. Measure the width of the location notch to the center line and measure the depth, or use a log caliper to find the required depth and width. Note these measurements on the face of the scarf. The larger number should always be the width of the notch. On the sill log, note the length of the logs needed for that particular location and mark in the specified overhang. Provide each wall with a letter designation so you can pick a log for that wall. A small piece of white polyethylene makes a good reusable notepad. Roll the log to find the correct location for the notch. Remember that the notch will have to be on the bottom of the log and the bow out when your work has been placed on the wall. Check your notes, then lay out the top and bottom widths for the notch. The first cuts are made straight down at the center to the depth you have noted at the notch location. If you know the height of your chainsaw bar, you can judge this cut quite accurately. The depth of this notch is more important than the width and should be cut accurately so that the scribe width is even. The notch should be slightly wide so that it will sit solidly on the top of the scarf. At the other end, use a block that won't interfere with the scribers. You can use a square or bow tie block, an adjustable butterfly block, or you can use a horse made of 2x4. These are the types most commonly used, but other solutions are also possible. Most often a standard width of block is used, such as a length of 2x4, and the location notch cut to provide the same width at the notch end. Whichever you use, be sure to dog or cleat the piece firmly into place before you scribe it. If there are several short pieces on one wall, you should pay attention to keeping them in alignment. The height can be controlled by scribe setting and piece selection, but you should be sure that the center line is carried accurately to the top. This should take care of the vertical plane. Pay some heed also to the horizontal plane, because this will have to be lined up and uniform when you reach the top of the windows and you want to place the header log. For those walls in which there are no openings, the logs can be treated in the normal way as described in